Hi, I'm Mike Bellevue. I'm the black powder editor for Guns of the Old West magazine, and I'm here at the range today with an 1865 Spencer carbine. Now, this is manufactured by the Armi Sport division of Chiapa in Italy, and it's imported into the United States by Taylors & Company of Winchester, Virginia. The Spencer rifle does not have the sort of tubular magazine under the barrel that we're most used to on lever actions. In fact, to most folks today, it probably looks more like a Sharp's single-shot rifle than it does like a conventional lever action. And there's no mystery to that. They actually used Sharp's parts, or Sharp's compatible parts, for the lock and the hammer, the trigger. The lever is very much like the Sharp's levers. That's why it looks that way, but we're used to rifles, of course, that load through a loading gate into a tubular magazine, and that's not how this works. The way this works is in the buttstock, there's a magazine tube, and you have to remove the tube completely to load it. And this would seem kind of awkward to us today, but during the 19th century, the military actually considered this an advantage. They thought having the magazine in the buttstock made it less likely to be damaged than having it hanging under the barrel as a tube. And actually, I think they were right. I mean, this was a fantastic military weapon. So the way you load a Spencer is just a little bit different. I'm going to lower the camera and show you how it's done. Right, the magazine tube is held in place by a little spring-loaded ball detent, which, I don't know if you can see it, it's right there. You just push it past that and pull the whole thing out. There's a little groove in the base of the magazine, and that's actually what locks it in place right here in the well. It takes 7 shots. Now this one's chambered for 4440, and the way you load them is to just basically slide them in gently. Now the original cartridge for this was a 5650 rimfire cartridge, which meant that you could pretty much drop them straight in because the bullet nose was not going to impact the cartridge in front of it, setting it off. The way it could, though very unlikely, but the way it could with these centerfire cartridges. Once you've got all 7 cartridges loaded in, you just replace the magazine tube and spin it back in place. And you might have to, like I'm going to have to, push that little ball detent down with your thumb, and then we're loaded. Now, this one is chambered in 4440, just because that's a lot more convenient to me. I already have dies for reloading it. It's available in 4440, 45 Colt, and in a centerfire version of the 5650 cartridge. And that's what, say, the North-South Skirmish Association would use. Now, we're going to be shooting this with black powder cartridges today. And I just want to get this out right up front because I always get questions on this. This gun is quite capable of firing any smokeless ammunition made by any factory, or any reasonable, SAMI compliant hand loads with smokeless powder. It's not a black powder gun, but it shoots black powder just fine, and that's what I prefer to shoot, so that's what we are going to shoot today, because let's face it, back in the day, they'd have shot black powder. Cavalry troopers who are armed with the Spencer carbine carried a piece of gear called a Blakesley box. And what this was essentially was a leather-covered block of wood that had 6 holes drilled in it. And it accepted metal tubes that each held 7 rounds of ammunition for the Spencer. And all you had to do was whip open that box, pull a tube out, and dump it right in the magazine and slam the follower back in, and you were back in the fight. So you had 6 magazines full that you could change very quickly instead of loading each cartridge one at a time. And it made for one of the rapidest, or the most rapid firing rifles of the Civil War or the Indian War era. Well, we've got Taylor's Spencer carbine loaded up and ready to go. Evil Roy is lurking around 50 yards downrange, just causing trouble. So let's see if I can hit them with this thing, which is not a sure thing. I should tell you the trigger pull on this thing is a ridiculous 20 pounds, which is the heaviest trigger pull on any Spencer I've ever used, original or reproduction. And I was very surprised by it, and I found it was pretty hard to accurately hit with it. So I asked tailors to pull 2 others from their shelf and to measure the trigger pulls, which they did for me. And those measured more in the 10-pound range, which is certainly more of what I would expect them to do. So let's get down there and see if we can hit Roy with this thing. Well, let's see what the 4440 Spencer carbine can do against a water jug 25 yards downrange. The decade following the Civil War was one of the most intense periods of Indian warfare that we face in the United States. Immediately after the Civil War, we had Red Cloud's War, which of course had the wagon box fight, the hayfield fight, the Fetterman massacre. We had Sand Creek, Beecher Island, the Washita campaign. The list just goes on and on. And during that whole period, the primary long arm of the cavalry was the Spencer carbine. Here they come! Let's finish off with the bad guy's view of the Spencer carbine.